online?
I'm online, Chair.
Very good, thank you. Let's move on to our first item of business, and that's to adopt a resolution commending Hung Wei for her dedicated public service to SVCE and the community. And let me go ahead and get started with that. I'm sure everybody read the resolution, and it speaks to Hung Wei's contributions to Silicon Valley clean energy and clean energy in general. It tells you about her 4 years as an alternate on our board. It also tells you about her 3 years on our Finance and Administration Committee, including 2 years as chair, and then also 1 year on our Audit Committee. And so those are important contributions, but that's just the start. See, I lived in Cupertino many years. I've known Hung for 20 years. And our kids went to school with her kids. And so it's been a long time. And so I think she spent 11 years on the high school board, helping education throughout the community. She was also elected to the city council and served as mayor. In addition, I'm a member of Cupertino Rotary and have been for 24 years. She was our president, and I'll never forget how exciting that year was when she was president. And then also more recently, she was district governor. So she had a lot of contributions. If you could show the picture. But even beyond that, I just want to say so many of us know Hung for her other contributions, and not just these physical ones, but just her very nature. Her smile could light up a room. And really, you catch her at an off moment. She never had a bad thing to say about anybody. She was always supportive, even the people that she disagreed with. So I would just say that in closing, we could all learn how to be better leaders from Hung Wei, and we will always remember her. With that, I would like to see if we have any other comments from the dais. I do not see any. Do I have any public comment? I do not see any. And so in that case, may I have a motion? This is the resolution, so.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so let's go with the roll call vote.
Actually, don't have to do roll call if you don't want to.
Oh,
given everybody's in person.
All in favor then?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, and I believe our CEO is going to take this one on.
Good evening, Chair, directors. So I often talk about how one of my favorite things to do here, given my CEO, is to talk about all the great people we add to our team. Tonight, I get to say goodbye to one of our team members. And so, resolution, and I hope you all read it. And if you read it, SVCE. So we had the pleasure of actually saying goodbye to him about a month ago, and we did it in a kind of informal setting and had a lot of fun roasting him. And so staff also had an opportunity though to do something a little more formal, to recognize again his contributions, not just as an employee, but as part of the group that helped form Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And so he was part of the formation team along with the county. I understand he also served on the board for temporary or for a small stint. And he was to welcome to Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And I have to admit, we couldn't be different. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who's this private entity guy? But we quickly learned how to really work well together. And by considering I guess partners and colleagues at Silicon Valley Clean Energy, one of my biggest supporters when I took the role of COO and then CEO. And so he's been gone. So realized what to know about him, because he put behind a really great team. And so some of his team members are here to also recognize him with a special gift. So we have a resolution. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Don did say to say a few words. And I imagine Don's going to have every single point in here. So I'll hand it over to Don first.
This is a much longer walk than it used to be. All right. Well, thank you, Monica, and good evening, directors. Thanks for this. I'm really honored. Needless to say, I think you all know that I've really loved my time with SVCE and I really appreciate the opportunity that I've had to contribute. SVC has accomplished so much over 10 years. And with my newfound free time, I tried to think about, so what's the essence? What are the key elements in SVCE's success? And what's really important for us to carry forward, and what makes this place fun? And I came up with three things. The first is SVCE's role in the community. The second is SVCE's opportunity as a new organization, still relatively new, but at one point really a startup. And thirdly, just the people involved, really from all angles. So drilling into those just a bit, in terms of SVCE's role, it's a rare organization that is founded and managed by the communities and the customers it serves. It's a rare organization that has a clear and concise mission like SVCE does. It's a rare organization that has a really strong customer value proposition and the financial resources that has enabled. So taken together, our communities and you as the board of directors and the directors that have preceded you have really created a remarkable space within which SVC has been able to take on this big challenge that we address. This is really unique as an organization. There are also unique opportunities and challenges that come with being a startup. Beginning back in 2016, virtually every single thing we did was brand new. We'd never done it before. We had to cut it out of whole cloth in many cases, no matter how big or small the item was. This is a small example, but this is the kind of thing that went on back then. We needed to create an SVCE brand identity. And I remember being in a room with some staffers from Sunnyvale, Melody and Aaron from Cupertino and others. And we had to figure out whether Silicon Valley Clean Energy should be spelled out in all caps or all lowercase or some combination of lowercase and uppercase. And this is a big debate. This is the kind of stuff you have to worry about as a startup. And as you know, all caps won out, and the thinking was that the business community would like that. They'd resonate with all caps. Little did we know that all caps is now the way that people express themselves, even in high places, in social media. So we made the right guess. Okay. For me, I think, and for many of us, the dynamics of building new things is really engaging. Equal parts fun and occasionally terrifying because you're often charting, completely new territory. Examples, and there are many, but here are a few just to give you a sense. Our first outbound email campaign, we had to figure out what to write and send to 175,000 of our customers. What could possibly go wrong? Our first customer rebate for a heat pump water heater, making sure the check got to the right place. Enrollment of customers in our SVCE branded mobile app for EV charging, putting together an online training course for contractors, huge effort, but not nearly as big as getting contractors interested in actually taking it. And now we have over 300 or something that have done it, which was really something. Executing our first PPA for solar plus storage and then subsequently operating that PPA. This hadn't been done before. Our first prepay transaction, our first customized contract with a large customer, our first reach code, our first lobbying day in Sacramento, and countless other things. Now, I wasn't involved with every one of those things, but SVCE was, and many of you have been part of that. In short, as a young and nimble organization, SVCE has a really unique ability to innovate, starting small and moving quickly to scale, and the opportunity to change course quickly if that's needed. Finally, the third and maybe most essential ingredient is about the people who are involved. Our many residential and business customers, or many of our customers, genuinely are committed to our mission. Our proactive community leaders, our electeds, our agency staff, and leadership also completely committed to our mission. SVC's staff, so knowledgeable and passionate, and just generally a group of professionals that really loves to build stuff. And then a shout out to SVC's executive leaders. We've had 3. They've all been amazing. They all have been respected in the CCA community as deeply skilled in the power industry and the kind of people that don't mind being in the boiler room, that love to get in and help build stuff. And that's just really a fantastic combination. And Monica is all that and more. So as SVC enters its second decade, my hope and expectation, because I'll be sitting out here either physically or virtually, and I will have the opportunity to freely opine, which hasn't been quite as free up until now. I'm hoping that these qualities persist. Focus on mission, delivering results, innovation, and then involvement of passionate and knowledgeable community members, customers, business partners, staff, and of course, leadership. So with that, thank you. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I did want to invite other staff from the public, or just even the public with staff, if they wanted to come say some words. If you would a little gift that we present to him.
We'll give people a chance to say something. Have we got any board members that wish to make a comment? Director Mekachuk.
Don, I can't believe that I've known you for a number of years. We first met at the Customer Program Advisory Group way back in the day. And it was just, that you described how we got from there to here now. And I'm just going through all those things as well. So your leadership has been immense, and especially obviously on the large customer side, and really knowing that and getting those customers, keeping them, that's a big part of our load. And I think that there's, you helped define Silicon Valley Clean Energy and have taken us here. So I compliment you and I thank you.
Great. Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. Dawn, I just want to say you really embody what I think I love about SVCE. You're incredibly bright and talented at what you do. You're also quite funny, and you make some of this, wading through some of the more technical stuff very palatable. And your dedication is it's incredible. And so I wish you all the success and thank you for the mentorship and the patience that you've shown.
Thank you. Why don't you proceed? I don't know if we have any other public comments. I do not see any in the room.
Round out Pam, Peyton to maybe come up as well,
Okay.
and Andrea if possible. These are the OGs, by the way. They preceded me. Oh, and Don.
Oh yeah, Don, this is you sent me my thing.
No party without him.
You guys can find this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we have photos. Juliet's gonna help us with some photos. All right.
Well, I guess you have to approve the resolution.
Just go ahead. Take the photo.
The wooden map, the ceremonial wooden map. And then
the SVCE branded cell phone, car key, caddy, personalized.
Fantastic. At this point, keeping track of my wallet, keys, and phone is biggest job.
Already got the medication organized.
can we go a little this way?
Yeah.
This thing
Oh,
is in
yeah.
the way. I'll just make their height real awkward and just stand right next to me. There you go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you want one? How do you do that?
I mean,
Oh, yeah, let's stand up there with the board.
Just up here?
Oh, no, just on it. Just.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Here we go. Okay. Okay. I won't be able to get you all though.
All right.
Let's hope they approve it.
Okay, yeah. Should I leave this here until then?
Very good. Well, let's not forget the next most important step, and that is, have we got a motion?
I'll second the motion.
And then since we don't have, so let's just say all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Very good. All right. You can hang on to that now. We weren't sure. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So great. Let's move on now to our consent calendar. You'll notice that there's quite a few items in here. There's a lot of great documentation on it. We're spending money, but we're doing it with the right purpose in mind. And so do we have any items that people wish to pull? I do not see any. In that case, do we have any comments or questions? I do not see any. Do we have any public comments? I do not see any. In that case, I'd be looking for a motion on consent.
Motion to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Luckily, I have Larry here to remember these things for me. The motion carries. That's right. Well, it's not luck, I guess. Great. Let's move on to item number 2, which is the CEO report.
Okay, so a few items to get through. I hope you all had a chance to read the CEO report and certainly can answer any questions should you have any. But first, I want to do some introduction of some new employees. Starting with Marvin Jing, who's an Associate Finance Risk and Data Analyst on the Finance and Data team. And so he's going to introduce himself.
Hello. Hi, board members. I'm Marvin. I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in material science and engineering, and I've been in the energy industry for 2 years at a renewable energy software platform company. And during my time there, I had worked with SVCE and really passionate about the mission that you guys have worked towards. So coming over to California to pursue continue my career in energy. A little bit about myself. I guess like some hobbies. I played tennis for about like 8 years, and now I'm trying to get into golf. But yeah, really excited to be here.
Welcome.
Okay, so every year we introduce a set of new Climate Corps fellows. These are like interns, but they are here for about a year, a little less than a year. We have 3 new ones that I would like to introduce today to the board, including Allison Moss, who will be our Climate Corps fellow on the Regulatory Policy Planning and Legislative team, working on grants. Donica Miller, who will be on the Marketing and Communication team, working on outreach efforts. And then Rio Neves, who will also be working on the Marketing and Communications team. So we'll start with Allison.
Hello, board members. I'm Allison Moss. I'm the Community Grants Fellow, and I recently finished my PhD at UC Davis in English, where I was studying the impacts of coastal change on communities and their narratives. So a lot of the outreach projects I was doing were looking at the results of climate change and the impacts of that. And so I'm really excited with SVCE to support communities and projects that are proactively addressing climate change and trying to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. So very excited to be working here and with you all. And a little bit about me, I grew up sailing. I love sailing. And as my coastal focus shows, I am often more comfortable on water than on land. So any kind of ocean activity, I am here for. Very good to meet you all.
All right, Donica.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Donica Miller. I'm the Community Outreach Fellow. I just graduated this spring from the University of New Hampshire with a degree in Sustainability and Sociology, as well as a minor in art. During my time at UNH, I got to work for 2 years for a wonderful nonprofit that was in the education space. Upon graduation, I was really excited to continue in the public education sector and equally as excited to work with my sustainability experience. And that's kind of where this job fits in perfectly. So it kind of just felt like a natural next step for me post grad. A little bit about me is that I grew up in Southern California and I love camping, hiking, anything outdoorsy. But thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to meet you.
Thank you.
All right, and then last we have Rio.
Hi. Thank you all for listening to us. It's been such a warm welcome. My name is Rio Neves. I am the Programming and Marketing Fellowship here at SVCE. I just graduated from Smith College in December with a degree in Women and Gender Studies, a minor in film, and a concentration in community engagement and social change, which is a lot of words to say. I got a liberal arts degree. But I am really passionate about digital marketing. I bring 4 years of experience in social media, and I'm very passionate about using social media as an activism tool, particularly about climate change. And I really want to bring more conversations about different climate solutions and electrification on SVCE's platforms. So I'm super excited that I get to be able to do that now. And a little bit about me is that I am from New York City and I grew up in the restaurant industry there, which actually taught me a lot about climate change and different sustainable practices and how to be resourceful. So thank you so much.
Great. Welcome. What interesting backgrounds, and welcome to you, Rio, Danica, and Allison.
Okay, and I also thought I'd bring up Zoe Elizabeth to talk a little bit about some of the reach codes that recently got passed in our community and challenges we're seeing in other parts of the state.
Great. I have a cheat sheet here with me, which is rare, but things are changing quickly all the time. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So as everyone knows, we are in Reach Code season, and this is a season like no other. So I'm going to give kind of just a quick update of the cities that have passed here, some that are planned in our service territory, and a little bit about what's going on elsewhere. So Sunnyvale and Mountain View both passed their two-way air conditioning reach codes. We're now calling that, instead of AC, to heat pump, two-way AC reach codes and electrification readiness. Saratoga, Campbell, Los Altos Hills, and Los Gatos all have their first readings in October. I think we have like 3 actually in 1 week. So we have a lot of activity that is coming up. Most of those jurisdictions are planning on those same one or both of those 2 reach codes. Santa Clara County is still considering and figuring out exactly the timeline. And the other jurisdictions are either considering or have decided not to. More broadly, San Francisco also passed a major renovations code. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's probably the largest city in California to pass a major renovations code that requires some electrification at any time of a large remodel. Palo Alto and Menlo Park have also passed codes. San Jose yesterday brought a code to council that did not pass. It was a 5-5 tie after about 2 hours of conversation back and forth, and they decided to not move forward after that 5-5 that tie. A lot of the questions were around cost. I think we've mentioned this in previous meetings. There is We're seeing more community activity and kind of a mobilization as we move towards the air district rules being enacted next year. And I think some of that community's questions then came also towards San Jose City Council. So we're actually actively working with San Jose staff and listened in on those reach codes to really understand kind of what the concerns are and can provide, make sure that all of you have the most up-to-date information available. Did I touch on everything, Monica? You want me to jump? Okay.
Questions?
Happy to take questions.
I'm all, oh, go ahead.
How was it 2 hours in a council meeting on that is, I can only imagine what it would be like. There must have been a back and forth. Was it always a split, or was there, can you give us just a little bit of color, and was there was obviously a swing vote?
Yeah, my interpretation, I wasn't there, but my understanding is that there was, and I think we've seen pretty good, important discussion on these issues at all of the council meetings. I think there were some council members in San Jose, I understand, that seemed to, just observing, decide during the council meeting. And I think a lot of the questions that came up, there were some very detailed questions about implementation that staff hadn't quite worked out. They had written, the way that their reach codes was written, they had different types of very specific exemptions that had kind of been worked through. And honestly, hadn't completely worked through how those would be implemented, so weren't able to answer that in council meeting. And I think that might have been part of the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. All right. Also want to invite Bennett Chang to speak a little bit about some of the activities happening on the legislative side. Lots of stuff happening there as well.
Good evening, Board. Bennett Chang, Director of Legislative Governmental Affairs. It's been an exciting 24 hours at the state legislature, and wanted to give you all a quick update on some of the major energy bills that we have been following and supporting. So last night and early this morning, you might have heard that the governor and legislative leadership came to a negotiated position on several big energy-related bills. We are still analyzing the hundreds of pages of legislative text and the impacts of these bills, but overall we see the developments as good news. So I wanted to bring up three big issues for your awareness. First, on regionalization, this now has a new bill number, AB 825 by Petrie Norris. The negotiated language in AB 825 is much better than the previous Senate version and provides a workable bill to advance regional energy markets. This is a huge win for SVCE. I'm really excited about that. Secondly, on the energy affordability package, this now has new negotiated language in SB 254 by Senator Becker. The big win for SVCE and the CCA community is that the Assembly's proposal for state oversight of CCA programs is not included in this new affordability package. I'm really excited to see that as well. The package now contains transmission financing, CEQA streamlining for energy projects, additional wildfire mitigation oversight, and a replenishment of the Wildfire Mitigation Fund. Third big news is that cap and trade also now has two new bills, AB 1207 by Assemblymember Irwin and SB 840 by Senator Lamone. The negotiated proposal includes a fairly clean reauthorization of the cap and trade program, which is now renamed to the Cap and Invest program. The proposal preserves the electricity climate credit and directs CARB to consider transitioning the gas climate credit to electricity climate credit. This is also a big win. The proposal now also continues existing expenditure funding categories and sets aside $1 billion a year for the legislature to appropriate from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund on an annual basis. We're expecting the legislature to vote on these bills this Saturday, after which they would go to the governor for signature. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Did you have a question, Director?
Yeah.
Make a joke.
So these are all teed up and they're just ready for the governor to sign?
So these are negotiated packages between the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor. But we don't know what will happen until the legislature finally votes on these bills. But it is a negotiated package between leadership.
Vice Chair.
And I know Friday's the deadline. Are there any other big bills that we're tracking that conceivably affect us in a big way? Or, I know this is and we've been discussing a few of these bills, or especially cap and trade, which I've heard multiple iterations of potential things. So is there anything else that we should be watching?
These are the big ones. The deadline to amend bills was last night, but that was pushed into the early hours of this morning. We think this is the final package of bills that will be out there, but I know that I often say in the legislature, where there's a will, there's a way. So there is still potential for new surprises to come, but we're feeling fairly confident that we know what's out there at this point.
Okay.
And these are major bills.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Director Showalter.
Do you have any suggestions for advocacy to the governor to request signing?
I think first step is to make sure these bills pass the legislature. And so SVCE is working with CalCC, our trade association, to make sure that the things that we support actually make it. For example, we just signed on to a coalition letter today supporting AB 825, the regionalization bill, which is a huge priority for this organization. But certainly would love to keep the board apprised of the positions that SVCE is taking, and then let you know what we're doing on the advocacy front as well.
Great. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay. With that, I have nothing else to report on my CEO report. Happy again to answer any questions.
Great. Let's see if we have any questions from the board. I did not see any public comment questions. I do not see any. And so this is for information only. So thank you very much. With that, let's move on to item number 3, which is approving the ad hoc subcommittee's proposal changes on the operating rules. And if we can pull up the slides for that, I can walk us through that. And so here's our first slide. Let's move on to the next one. We're talking about operating rules and regulations. You may recall, let's go to the next slide, that our rules were initially adopted back in 2016, and that at the back in April executive committee and then the board meeting in May, we decided to form an ad hoc subcommittee consisting of me, Vice Chair Klein, and Director Showalter to look at some of these updates. And frankly, I chose the people who I felt like represented a range of experience with a great deal of large organization governance history. So with that, let's move on to the next slide. And we agreed on what our proposed scope would be, and that is to look at what our current operating rules and regulations are. And then an important part was we knew that there were changes happening in other neighboring CCAs. And so we would review what's going on with them and see what their strengths or weaknesses and how we might adapt them to us. Identify some potential amendments. And then we also coordinated with staff. This was something that we added along the way to say, well, if there's some other things that need changing, let's do it all at once because this is a big change. We don't need to do it that often. And so let's make sure that it's thorough. And then another element of that was any of the ad hoc subcommittee's suggestions we would run past our experienced legal support here to make sure that they were consistent with other things that were needed. And so then the plan is to send the recommendation to the executive committee, which was done, 2 weeks ago, and then now to the board of directors for approval. So let's go to the next slide. And I wanted to put a lot of context into this because I think it's worth repeating. And the fact is that we, SVCE, all in capital letters, you'll notice, is a large, growing, and increasingly complex entity. And if you haven't figured that out, just look at our consent item today or what we did last time. And I don't know who's going to argue with me. We have strong financials, we have excellent staff, and we have effective programs that are the envy of other organizations in all of those fronts. But let's also face it that we have business and regulatory pressures that are increasing, as we also constantly hear about too. So our work is becoming more complicated, and we saw that in particular at our August board meeting. But also, and I step back and I will say, these are my comments, but I think I've gotten affirmation on this to say, really, our current governance is good. We are looking at changes from a position of strength. Our board, this is my opinion, you tell me, is engaged and motivated. Okay? I find our board experience to be diverse and good, strong levels of experience. And here's another thing, it's a little bit subjective. I think we're collegial and we're eager to learn. And we want it to stay that way. Okay, so that's the context of all this. And so the whole thing is, let's look at our governance from a position of strength and to make sure that we have experience and continuity as we mature as an organization. And so let's move on to the next slide and give you a little more of this. So what did the subcommittee do, the three of us? We reviewed documents from other CCAs, about 7 or 8 or 9 of them, to see what features did they have and how we might compare them. And then we chose 3 that had the most similarity with us, and then interviewed board members and CEOs. So from 3CE, that's Central Coast, PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, and AVA, which is the East Bay. And those struck us as being the most similar. So a lot of back and forth. In fact, I even spent 2 hours with the board chair of PCE to say, you just changed your governance. What prompted that? What worked? What did you not do? A lot of things like that. It was really helpful. And it's really helpful to have these sorts of resources available to us. And so some of the things that we discovered is that, well, some of these organizations have very large boards. Like there's one organization has 38 board members. And they've had experienced huge levels of turnover in recent years. And, you know, in any kind of elected body, you're going to wonder if you're going to get some of that. But one of these organizations had 60 to 70% turnover in the last year and 50% the year before that. Really a challenge, a really challenge. Some of them have a problem filling committee positions. Others lack strong financials and others lack vibrant programs. So I don't want to make it sound like we're bragging, but it is good. Oh, wait a minute, why not? Really? Well, I actually feel very proud of the situation we're in, and it just reinforced this sense that we had a position of strength. And then also, we did see some good practices that we do not currently follow, and then explored how to best adapt them to our organization. And so let's see what the next slide says. And so first off, we did get feedback from staff, and staff had a number of changes. And I direct you to look at the attachments here where you can see the red line version, so you can see exactly what was changed in these documents here. And some of these were staff initiated. So for example, rewording the purpose section, some of the meeting location details were not necessary in a document like this. And then also adding some details on the finance and administration as well as audit committees to make it more comprehensive and complete. Also to define our rules of order. And then the subcommittee, we developed a number of other changes, which I'll talk about in the next slide, and then discuss them with staff to make sure which ones apply. And so let's go on to this next slide. And this is not meant to be all of the items, but it was my sense of what I thought were the high points. And so if I left something out, it was not really on purpose. But one of the things that we saw was the identification of a nominating ad hoc subcommittee. And you can see some of the details here to propose that. And some of you belong to other organizations that do have a nominating committee. We have never had one of those before. And I will say that some of the organizations also have nominating committees. So the whole thought here is to put in a process. So in this case, to say that the vice chair would nominate 3 directors to create this, that would form this ad hoc nominating subcommittee, to receive proposals, recommend candidates for each, and then also nominations permitted from the floor. Some of the details you see in the documents that are not in this slide are to have this committee also just take a look when things come in, rather than, and I'll speak a little extemporaneously here, we don't want to make this that we choose somebody by whoever gives the best presentation on a given night. We want to make it to be something a little systematic and thoughtful so that we're approaching things from an appropriate kind of level of detail. We also thought that it would be good to randomize votes for contested positions so that we didn't put the same people always on the spot when there's something that's competitive, say. We added a listing of director best practices, and so they serve as a guidance to just remind us of what is the correct sort of behavior. We also did something that I think was widely seen as a strength, was to add the board chair and vice chair automatically on the executive committee. We have not had that before. Other organizations have. We have a new committee removal process that's based on lack of attendance. And then we also established some minimum experience on the board. We've never had that. 2 years for the board chair and 1 year each for the vice chair and executive committee. And then just this last point is here, we looked at chair term limits as being kind of a good idea, and other CCAs have them, but it turned out our JPA, our formation documents said we wouldn't have those. So we thought, well, let's put that aside. And let me speak more broadly to say, we saw some other things in CCAs, and in effect, what we did was we took a middle path. We had some that were a bit more directive. So in a way, we're adding more structure and process to the way we do things, but we didn't go all the way. There's one CCA, for example, the board chair chooses all the committee members. In another CCA, each board member is required to be on a committee. We don't require that. There's a CCA that has certain positions that are reserved for the larger entities, and that the smaller ones rotate through. Now, we think it's important to have representation of the larger entities, but we didn't want to make that a dictate. We wanted to make that part of that because, frankly, I'm going back to this whole governance is good, to say we're not going to take the most extreme thing because, frankly, I don't think it's necessary. And as a whole, we as a board, I think we're going to make good decisions. So with that, I'm going to see what our last slide is to take a look at the what our next steps are. And so that would be to bring to our October meeting if there are any changes. Let me just add, we did have a report that also followed our discussion at our executive committee, and we had a substantial amount of time on this. Some of it was, do we really have a concern about defining all the things that represented, let's say, bad behavior? And we decided we didn't really want to tie our hands and fully constrain to say what bad behavior was, because what if somebody thought of something that we didn't think of? So we left it. And you know what that is? That's a representation. That's reflecting the fact that we think as a group, we're going to make the right decisions. There was also a discussion about the nominating committee and is that necessary? And then how might that be structured? And so we ended up voting unanimously to forward the existing committee's recommendations to the board. And with that, I think I'll step back and see if we have questions. And by the way, thank you, Vice Chair Klein. Thank you, Director Showalter, because we went through a lot of discussions. And I appreciate your support and your wisdom in all this.
Yeah, I don't really have questions, but I did want to specifically thank Chair Tyson for taking the lead on this. He did a tremendous amount of homework, and he put together a number of charts that he sent to us and said, okay, what are your comments? And if we didn't respond quickly enough, he let us know as a good professor. But we got together several times on Zoom and had really good conversations about, how our experience had both in Silicon Valley Clean Energy and in other boards we'd served on, how our experience led to making some changes here. And in particular, we really treasure the civility, the sense of civility that we have on this organization. And I think all of us know that it's something to be cherished and husbanded. We want to protect it. And so, particularly the list of best practices. It's not that we think these things are a problem right now. It's just like when you're starting a stakeholder group and you have ground rules that are listed on a poster on the wall that everybody's attention goes to. If there's an issue, you can point to those and remind people, oh yeah, That's how we think we should do things and we should treat each other. And so I just wanted to mention that as something that I felt was really important to be included in this explicitly. And thank you very much, Chair Tyson and Mayor Klein, for your contributions to the conversations.
Thank you, Director. Vice Chair.
Thank you. And I'll echo what Director Showalter said. You know, I just want to thank the chair first for all the time he spent. Not just, it was one thing to collect the documents, but to actually interview chairs and members from other organizations, because a lot of only a certain amount is actually captured in the documents. And that's one of the biggest things. And you know, from the subcommittee standpoint, the big decision or the big kind of discussion was, we have it good here. And what this was an attempt to do was codify best practices, some of which we were already doing, but trying to make sure it's clear, but then taking what we learned from other organizations and making sure that from a governance standpoint, we're making sure that this organization is in good hands, because as we know, we see organizations that you might be appointed to change over time, and making sure that it's a very technical, as all of us know, very technical board. And so making sure that we have the best people sitting here making the decisions is in the best interest of everyone. So I just want to thank the chair for not just the cracking the whip to make sure that Pat and I were doing the job, but also partnering with staff, because there were things that we didn't even think about going in that we should have. We were looking at within a certain boundaries, but while we're evaluating kind of best practices, it's important to look at it from a wider standpoint. So thank you.
Dr. Scazola.
All right, thank you, Chair. This might be a question for one of the OGs in the room. Don, get back up here. Just kidding. But I am kind of curious. As a question that came on my mind is maybe how many times over the years, approximately, ballpark figure, would you say there have been contentious votes or awkward votes or whatever you want to call it, like just ballpark? I was very curious about that.
I can ask Andrea if she's been here since the very beginning and she's got the official role as the clerk, so she would know. But in the time that I've been here, I think maybe and by contentious only that we had to do 2 rounds of votes, right? I don't know if they were contentious, but I think twice. But Andrea could probably speak to more.
Yes, I would agree with that. Very few times we've had to do that.
Oh, great. Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Mekachuk.
I didn't see, or sorry, let me ask a different question. Did you speak to anyone from Marin Clean Energy?
I did not.
Okay. Because they're kind of a bit of a leader and they've been around for a while. I was just wondering if you had input from them. Or if you had asked them questions.
I did not.
Okay.
I did read their documents, but I did not speak with them.
The amount of work that you did clearly shines through all of this. And I commend the committee for doing the work.
Thank you. Let me add one thing. The other CCAs are very worried about their governance, and they were eager to help. And they know that I'll help them if I have some insight, and they call upon me too. So it's part of the sharing that I think we should all continue to build on. Yeah. Go ahead. Director Risto.
Thank you. As an alternate, I have only had the opportunity to serve on this board intermittently when our primary director, Rob Rennie, is out of the country. And one of the things I think about with this organization is I remember when Silicon Valley Clean Energy was starting, and we had 2 council members that were exceptionally interested in being part of the formation, and Rob Rennie ended up being that person. What I look at is a lot of people on this board right now are part of the original founding board of directors, I think. No? Okay, that's what I was curious about. So I know Rob was one of them, but I didn't
Just
know.
him.
Is it about half and half?
No, just him.
Oh, okay. All right. Because one of the things I was thinking is after this time, when it looks like we've got a very successful organization and my participation in the meetings, I've observed how well everyone works together, how prepared everybody is, and I don't see that on every organization I belong to. It's not a given. And so it's good to look at what makes everything good and try to codify that, leave enough leeway for changes, but understanding that most of us have term limits and that there will be turnover, whether people want to stay on here for their whole time on a council or not. And, I take it very seriously because I think I will probably have the opportunity after Rob Rennie is done to only be a director for 2 years and then I'm termed out. And so we're thinking very hard about who's the next person. And I think that is a mark of a really good board of directors, that it's so important that we want to make sure that we appoint somebody who will be committed and will be able to serve for more than a year or two, because I think that continuity as it feathers through is really important. So I appreciate the work
Very
that you've
much so.
done, and it feels very timely.
Very good. Thank you. Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to thank you. I think I really appreciate a lot of the changes that I see here, and especially just in the environment that we're in today. I very much appreciate the processes and think it's really important for organizations to be successful by following those. So hopefully, we are able to codify a good structure that has been working. I've said many times before, this is definitely one of my favorite organizations, and I do think it's because regardless of where the idea comes from, we usually go with a good idea. And I think that that's a really great way to make policy. I think that when you have some of those ideas bubble to the top, it's really important to change or pivot or influence the policy. So I think all of that's great. I really like having the year experience. I think it's important with this board, just being sure that people, that you get the chance, really the opportunity to understand and utilize the staff and get to have some base knowledge. So I think that that's really important. And just some of the other pieces as well. The one piece I think that I have, that my question as I was looking at this, and some of just thank you for your comments, Director Ristow, is on the nominating committee. I still, I've looked at it and I've thought about it. We had our executive committee. I've looked a little bit more. I'm just not sure if that's something that we need. And I think that's part of, I'd like to hear from other colleagues if they feel that is something. I think being one of the people who is involved in one of those votes, I think we are definitely in good hands. We have people who are very capable and willing and committed to do the work. I think it's an incredibly collegial environment that we work in, and we're very lucky to have that. So I would just, I would love to hear from my colleagues to see, if that's something that you all feel very strongly about. I think by having all of the board voices, to me, it provides more input. It provides a really transparent process. So, I'll save the rest for comments, but that was my one question that I had.
Thank you. Director Walia.
I have one question. I did raise this in the exec committee meeting, and I want to come back to that because something else caught my attention. So I'm looking at this is a small thing. I agree with everything that's been said. A lot of work moving forward, capturing the wonderful, what was the word used earlier? I think Pat said civility. On the board. It is everybody's favorite assignment. We are all deeply committed. We work hard on this and for a good purpose, let's not forget, and staff is fabulous. So my only thing which I'm going to mention again, to keep the good, the positive approach, the culture on the board as well. So on page 5, right at the top, it talks about the regular meetings. It's about there have been some suggested corrections made about the time and the location of the meeting. So what caught my attention just now was the second sentence there says, in the event that the regular meeting location is not available. But we are not giving any regular meeting location. So that doesn't add up to me. Am I missing something here, Michael?
Adopted a regular meeting location in the last board meeting that establishes this as the regular meeting location with a 7 p.m. as the regular start time.
So this is referring to the resolution.
Yeah, the resolution will be controlling in terms of setting the regular meeting location and time as opposed to the operating rules.
So do we want to mention here, refer to the resolution? Anyway, I have my answer, so that's fine. Just thinking aloud. But the question is, I am once again thinking about removal of the second Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Because when I thought about it, and you know how much I respect you, Michael, from what I understand, it really came from you, not from the ad hoc committee per se, came from you to remove, the location is fine, I get it. The second Wednesday, 7 p.m., I recall you saying it was in case of something like a prepay that needs to be done in a regular meeting. And have we used that before?
We have had times where we've adjusted the meeting schedule, but the resolution that the board adopted at the last meeting does establish 7 p.m. as the meeting time.
For what duration?
It's indefinite, but the board would pick that up each year in January and establish the sort of meetings going forward for the year.
Okay, so I'm hearing two things, and this is a small thing, but again, my concern comes from when something ain't broken, don't fix it. The second Wednesday, 7 p.m. has worked so far because all the cities have council meetings at different times. I'll give you one example. It just jogged my memory that October 8th, some of us will be in Long Beach for Cal Cities conference. And the email that came out from staff, human error happens. Staff asked us if we are available for quorum that day in the county, which is fine. Or the alternate was the next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Two councils that I know of have a regular meeting scheduled at that time. So my concern is if something like that happens, it's almost taking away the vote of a jurisdiction, and human error will happen. Down the road, people may forget, especially if we take this out. Right now, all of us are aware. So it's not about us. It's looking down the road. It's very simple. There is nothing wrong there in saying second Wednesday, 7 p.m. There has been no occasion that it has been a problem. Call it a small thing that I'm being a little more concerned than some may agree with. I just feel there's no need to remove that. That's my question. And if there's anything else you want to add to that why, I'd like to hear it now.
Yeah, I think we discussed it briefly at the executive committee. The purpose really for moving out of the operating rules is to give the board more flexibility in setting the date and time. The operating rules require 2 readings, so we'd have to come to 2 board meetings to make that change, whereas the board could otherwise adopt it via resolution under our JPA. And so the goal here is to adopt it via resolution to make it more flexible for the board to do. But I think the intent, as is captured in the resolution, is to keep it every second Wednesday at 7 p.m., at the regular meeting location. And there will be times due to, lack of quorum, other reasons that we may need to schedule a special meeting or may not be able to keep it to that time or may need to cancel a board meeting. But I believe the intent that the board has expressed is to maintain that time, the regular time.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I struggled with this. Yes, and thank you for repeating that for the full board. I still feel the intent for now, correct, absolutely. But again, that error did happen. that date should not have been proposed. I understand October 8th being a problem. But to me, there has been zero instance of a problem from SVCE doing its business. Wednesday, 7 p.m. announced ahead of time permanently in the rules as a regular meeting date, but there has already been a human error. That's how I look at it, as the proposal that, oh, if we can't do this, why not do this date, which we know 2 jurisdictions that I know of at least have. So enough said. That's my concern here.
May I speak? So it wasn't a human error. It was a request by the chair and the vice chair to seek attendance for October 8th. And if there wasn't going to be a quorum, to ask about the following week. So we were directed to ask to survey the board.
The survey would be proposing multiple dates and certainly not choosing a date where any of the 13 city, I would not do that. If any city council has a regular meeting schedule at that time, I would not. And that's my point, that things like this happen. I call it human error because there was some thought. I'm not questioning that at all. It could be something else happening. That's the reason I'm hesitant in removing the second Wednesday, 7 p.m.
Yeah, we do.
That's my hesitance.
Yeah, we do have real concerns about having a quorum on October 8th. So we're sure we're going to have a meeting on October 8th at this point.
I don't have an issue with that question. I'm aware of that. That's not, the point is I'm only coming back to this.
Let me see if I can just paraphrase this a little bit, because I don't believe there was an error made. There was an accommodation sought to see if we could come up with a quorum in an easier way for people. And once it was apparent that that wasn't the case, then we reverted back. And I do believe we're shaky on the quorum, so don't anybody mess up our October meeting here. So I hear your concern, Director Walia, but I'm going to say what you're asking for is a high degree of certainty that requires 2 meetings to make it not a regular meeting in the future. And I know in our cities, we often have things that are statutorily required to be in a regular meeting. And we've only come up so far with the example of a prepay agreement as being one that has to be a regular meeting. I think it's quite possible, I don't know what they are, that we could have such a thing again. And so the concern that you have, I do not share.
Chair?
I'll leave my comments for discussion.
Oh, are we not on discussion? Could have fooled me. All right.
We're on discussion, yes. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah.
Adams. Question? Oh, get to public. We're still discussion. We'll get to it.
We're in the questions right now.
All right. You're on questions, then we will go to public comment, and then we'll come to director discussion. Questions?
So I believe that it's important to understand when the meetings are going to be held before the city councils and town councils assign people to the different JPAs, etc. So it would be helpful for our city, and I think others, if that was set before the end of December, because we have our reorganization and we allocate who's going to be on which JPA. How could that, here's my question. How could that be handled in the way we're doing this as proposed?
I misspoke. We do consider the meeting schedule in December, in January. And as I understand, it's been maintained as the second Wednesday at 7 p.m. In the foreseeable past. And so I would expect it would stay in that time. Unless the board had reason to change it.
My next question is, and forgive me, if there is a conflict like there's going to be with the Cities Association meeting on October the 8th, how do we handle that within the proposed resolution?
So we would handle it typically by scheduling a special meeting if we needed to conduct business for the next regularly scheduled meeting, which would not be changed by any of the changes we're making to the ORs here. If we, didn't have a pre-poll that needed to take place at a regularly scheduled meeting, we would likely schedule a special meeting if we needed to conduct business.
Thank you.
Are there further questions? I will now open it to public comment. Do we have any public comment in the room? I do not see any. Do we have any online?
None online,
I'll
Chair.
bring it back to the directors now for discussion. Director Meadows, would you like to start?
Thank you. So I understand the concerns, but I'll explain why around the date, that is. I'll explain why I think they're misplaced. Because the resolution is going to define the dates, and as our council explained, that's easier to do than to change these operating rules every time that we're going to do it. But you can never achieve perfect certainty, even regardless of that. City councils change their meeting dates. They have special meetings. So you're trying to provide a certitude, which may not be a word, I acknowledge, to dates that are not completely within SVCE's authority anyway. So I just don't, I don't feel that I support the executive committee's recommendation, and I support it on, I feel like so far what I've heard, we've had all this discussion at the executive committee meeting, and we've had the ad hoc subcommittee. So I support what is in front of us as it is. And over time, as we all are, we're going to be flexible and make changes as we need, but I think this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Director Meadows. Director Scazola.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I do see logic in Director Walia's idea here. Because, well, for me personally, I do like having I know it's not technically set in stone either, but just know, second Wednesday, it's just easy in your mind. We all have our schedules. We all have so much to think about. But I am thinking in the way that I would rather do an extra step on that rare time that we do have to change the meeting, like I understand how it would make it easier if we change it, but I do see the logic that Director Wiley is talking about. So I actually am supportive of what she's talking about right now in regards to just keeping it set same standard second Wednesday.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any other further discussion? Director Mekachuk?
I believe that the work that was done was very thorough. I have a lot of confidence in moving forward with this. I think that we've got the flexibility to change things. And I agree with Director Meadows in that we need to have some date certainty, but you know what? There's never date certainty, So I think you won't get a perfect algorithm. This is as close as we're going to get. So I'm going to be supporting this tonight.
Great, thank you. Director Vice Chair?
Yes, and I understand the concerns about the dates. I think from an organizational standpoint, and you know what, when from a cities association, when we reach out, we ask the clerk, what is the normal, we ask the clerks of the different boards, what is the normal meetings calendar? That's not changing. There's no, from an organizational standpoint, there's nothing that we're planning to do to change that anytime soon. And I think this is the whole thing of why we're trying to codify rules is, it's like, it's that institutional knowledge. And I think what's captured here and in talking to legal advice is, we set our calendar each year and it will always be the second Wednesday, unless it falls on a holiday, and then we will put a question mark around that date. We'll choose a date either before or after or on that date, and then deal with that as we come closer to that calendar date. So I think what's here is, especially with our legal advice, gives us the flexibility and, for what we're doing. There's nothing entailed, we're not saying, oh, we're ready to switch it to the second Thursday. Or to me, what's here is fine. And then the issue that Director Martinez Beltran brought up about nominating committee. This is, you know, we have this for Cities Association. We have that, you see this for the Peninsula Division. When you get larger groups of mixed backgrounds and mixed skill levels with the organization, it becomes really important to at least try to create a list of potentially who's on the executive board. I think that's one of the biggest questions: executive board, vice chair, chair. And it doesn't change the concept that people would still apply. There's a whole list of people applying for those positions. And whether or not the board as a whole takes that as the final suggestion, that's for when it actually comes to the board. But having that nominating committee, the nominating committee, as we're going through conceivably soon with the Cities Association, looking at a mixture of city sizes, backgrounds for this organization, city sizes, backgrounds for how long you've been with the organization, what your skill sets are, and conceivably even gender, trying to make sure that there's a mixture of perspectives from that standpoint on the executive committee. That's something that's very difficult to do on a night of trying to do that executive appointment. So having a nominating committee to discusses the plus and minuses of all the different applicants that apply to an executive committee, I think that has value. I wish there were a few other boards that I'm on that would have a wider discussion on what's the best leadership for that organization. And not the executive committee is the be all end all from this, but often for this organization, but they do get a first look at a lot of the items that come to the board and hash out or point out conceivable issues with staff's reports or things that this board needs to see before it comes to us. But that's what I think a nominating committee has value for. And I appreciate, the chair for trying to codify what that looks like in looking and working with the subcommittee. And then one of the things we talked about was contentious votes. Director Scazola, for me, I think doing more random votes, unless it's voice vote, has value. If we're not able to click a button, the concept that Sunnyvale is always last means that the vote is always decided before it gets to me, or conceivably it is on the deciding factor if it's split, if it's an even. And so it's not just contentious votes. We've had a little bit of this discussion at the executive board. We ran out of time. I think in general, if we're doing voice votes because people are remote, it becomes a good practice to do basically randomize that as much as possible, not just from a contentious standpoint, but that's my 2 cents. And I'm happy to support, the subcommittee working on it, but with the executive committee also approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Director Walia. You got it.
Yeah, finally got it. Thank you. So Mayor Klein, as always, you have a way of expressing things in a manner that is collegial. And that's exactly what my point was about the 7 o'clock timing, because different cities do, to Director Mekachek's point, different cities decide assignments very early in December. I know the range is from early December before SVCE board meeting to the end of January, which is after SVCE's board meeting in January. So that was the whole thing. And I agree with what you said about the nominating committee, and that's how, again, you also know at Cities Association, we were polling rather than saying, oh, we're going to choose a date where any city has a regular scheduled in their code. And that was the reason I'm disappointed you feel very strongly that there's nothing wrong in it, because to me, taking away, I don't have any issues in October 8th. That's a clash, no problem. but to rather than poll, which is what Mayor Klein is doing for Cities Association, to poll with multiple dates rather than the schedule conflict because of the conference, to propose an alternate date for a full board meeting, which is a straight schedule conflict with cities' regular council meetings, rather than, exactly to your point, asking the clerks. That is the way to go. And that's the reason I wanted to bring this up for discussion, because I remember that I call it human error, because I wouldn't do it that way. Taking two cities' voice, basically their vote, that they cannot participate. The main director, none of the council members can, if that's the date we go with. And that was the whole thing. This gave me the example. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I think at this point in time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation as set forth by the ad hoc committee. And
Do we have a further comment? Let's go ahead and hear your comment, then we'll see if there's a second.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, so I brought this up in the executive committee meeting, but as Director Wally also said, I do have kind of the mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, we do have a method. And after hearing, I kind of assumed there were a lot more, whatever the wording we want to call it, contentious votes, before my time. But hearing that, well, it's only a couple, two, it kind of reaffirms that we are doing well, we are collegiate. And so I am afraid, and I voiced this at the executive committee, that there's a possibility of, in the future, like, hey, we're great now, but in the future, I am afraid that this can become politicized, especially with one person choosing the committee and then those people going on to give recommendations. So I know questions were earlier, but I would like to know a little bit more about the recommendations process. I should have asked that earlier. I apologize, but if maybe someone could go into, what does that mean exactly? Is it literally like handing in a report? The three people have their own opinion? Is it a collective report, or have any of those thoughts gone into it for the actual nomination committee?
I will say that we deliberately didn't say the answer to your question.
Okay.
Because, it's a judgment call
Mhm.
to say, and what's more important, to have a city balance, to have a gender balance on a
Mhm.
given year? I don't know. I don't want to put that in there. And so it's really just three thoughtful people saying, and let's face it, I'm more worried about the shortage of applicants than I am the surplus. Because that's what the other CCAs are seeing. And right now, what are we going to face if we've got an executive committee that only has 4 applicants for 6 positions, and we're scrambling in a public meeting to figure out who's going to do it and twist their arm? I feel like that's the real purpose of this. That's the real purpose.
All right, I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm happy to second the motion. And once again, Mayor Klein, I would say to Director Scazola, the way Mayor Klein described it, I think he put it quite well, how different JPAs and other places, how they go through the process. And it's not quite, it's hard to put it in the rules. And having been so many years at Cities Association, observing, being on the board and then being on the executive committee, I have seen how that goes about, because that has 15 members. Here we have 13. I'm not familiar with BT or the others. And that's a large group with members changing, because some cities keep continuity, some don't. And so it's the overall mix. And so with that, I do have confidence that that would be a positive change. So everything written here is a positive change. As I said, I discussed one thing which I felt differently about, and I wanted to hear from the others. And but I'm also happy to support the motion.
Can we start with a randomized vote tonight? Why not? Let's kick it off in style.
Chair, yeah, I'd like to make one last quick comment, and then I'd be happy to Oh, or you already said you're going to second the vote, or, okay, all right. I just wanted to say that the point of these ORRs, I think that's the initial, is not to look back at what we've done, but to future-proof what will be going on. And so it's not the right metric to say how many times were there contentious votes, but what do we do if we get more of those in the future? So thank you.
Thank you. Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate hearing your thoughts. When we heard this at Executive Committee, I mean, as I said, I wonder, as you're saying, that you don't look back. And I think there's definitely value in that. I think also, I think it's worked well. And so I also feel that that's something that I wanted to bring up here. And that's why we brought it from Executive Committee here to hear from everyone from the board. So this is good to hear. I appreciate, Larry, you sharing that, your perspective as far as how you think that this is going to help us. And it's true, there may be a time, I mean, we've had an abundance, but there may be a time where we don't have an abundance. So I don't know. We haven't, that hasn't happened here yet. So maybe it will. Things are, as we are learning, change all the time. So, we'll see what happens there. But I also, just to, give the background as the chair of the VTA board, I've learned that we do have a nominating committee, but they don't make a recommendation, they collect. And when I saw this, I went and I asked a little bit about that and just tried to understand, what they were doing there too. And it was really just if somebody wanted to ask if somebody else had experience, had been in the position, to give some different feedback. So, but I think, there's also a great deal of trust in this board. And so I think we move, and somebody was saying flexibility, and if we have to come back and, we have to look at that again, then we do. So, but thank you. I thank you all for, for sharing and giving your perspective where we're at. Onward.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. And so, all in favor? No?
No randomized.
Did you want to do a randomized vote?
We asked for randomized. Oh, yeah, we'll ask for randomized, a verbal vote.
Okay,
Right.
and this is randomized. I will just disclose that. And this is to approve the ad hoc committees. All right. And this is to
Christmas
approve,
is coming up, Andrea.
what's that? This is to approve the amendments as proposed for adoption via resolution at a future meeting. Chair Tyson,
Yes.
alternate director Risto,
Aye.
Vice Chair Klein,
Aye.
Director Showalter,
Aye.
Director Scozola,
Aye.
Director Meadows.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Walia,
Aye.
Director Martinez Beltran,
Aye.
Director Lee.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Makachek,
Aye.
Director Fruin.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for a robust and what's the word? Collegial discussions? Civil as well. With that, let's move on to item number, get on down here, Mr. Singh. Item number 4, adopt the fiscal year 25-26 recommended operating budget, and also the recommendation on reserves.
Okay, good evening, directors. So as I promised last month, I was going to be back to bring the budget for approval this time. Obviously, we've heard the financial projections many times now. We've been talking about it for a few months. So the purpose today is to bring the budget for adoption before our fiscal year begins on October 1st. So the current fiscal year ends September 30th. And the new fiscal year begins on October and runs through September 30th of 2026. So given that we discussed the budget in detail last month, I'm just going to give the highlights of the budget, but obviously any questions you should have, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so the key highlights of the budget, as you know, and we started talking about this when we brought the mid-year budget for adjustments for this current fiscal year in March. We know that looking at the 5-year outlook, the margins look kind of negative. And then we did the extensive stress test analysis, and we went into a huge discussion on risks that the agency faces in June. We went through all the uncertainties that the business faces, also the uncertainties in putting together the budget. And just remind the board that those uncertainties are present in this budget. So as you look at the numbers, just a reminder, for the upcoming fiscal year, we are showing a negative contribution to reserves of 40.1 million. In other words, we'll be drawing 40.1 million. But again, this is a projection at this time. And as we talked about last time, we will be bringing the budget back for adjustment in December at the same time when the board will approve new rates that will be in effect in January 2026. The main reason for the decline in our financial outlook, again, is the projected decline in revenues, which is driven by mainly by market-driven forces, where prices are coming down. So we are projecting the PCIA component is going to increase, actually double from current levels, and the PG&E rates are going to come down, which brings the SVCE margin down, so we remain competitive with our customers. And again, this budget was put together as business as currently we're running it. As we discussed back in last month and in June, when there's more certainty, when there's more certainties, we'll be updating the budget in December. But given the financial reserve projections in the financial reserves that we have built up to date, we are actually in stable position financially, despite the negative outlook. So what the reserves have done, and this is what they were designed to do, is to basically give us the opportunity to be very strategic and take very measured response to any kind of changes in market conditions. And that's what we're recommending, not to take any drastic measures at this time, because as you remember, the reserves, even for the next 2 fiscal years, we're at or close to target reserve levels, even with the negative projections. So what we are recommending is that the staff continue to work on financial options and financial levers as we have started to do. And then we will bring those levers and those analyses to the board in December. At the December meeting, we can go through those analyses, and should we need to act on any of them, we can then discuss it. But we want to be very strategic. As I said, we will have more information for next year's financials in fall when the CPUC issues a market price benchmark, which are some of the key inputs that go into determining the PCIA, and also affects PG&E's generation rates. And that will give us a better insight into next year's financial projections. So when we have that discussion in December, we will go through the financial options and levers that we have. And should we need to exercise on any of them, staff will make that recommendation to the board. So for the budget that you're approving today, we have assumed the 4% discounts through December of 2025. This is in keeping with the board direction that we discussed at the mid-year budget in March. We decided that this year, for the whole calendar year of 2025, we wanted to give customers an effective 10% discount, which was inclusive of the one-time bill credit of 33 million, which we have started issuing, and you saw the press releases on them, and also providing the continued 4% discount through December of this year. And in making that recommendation, the board realized and looked at the financial projections for not only for next year, but also the 5-year outlook, but also balanced against our objective of customer affordability, financial outlook, and recognizing that the rates that the customers are paying right now are at a higher level. Even though our outlook is declining, but so will the customer rates. From the customer perspective, rates in the coming years will be coming down. And based on that reason, we have decided to give a 10% rate effective this year. So in giving the 4% through December of this year, that's in keeping with what we've communicated with our customers per the board direction that we discussed in March. Again, we will revisit the 2026 rates in December. In terms of all other components of the budget, they're relatively minor changes. There's no additional increase in personnel. We budgeted for a 3% cost of living adjustment. There's some slight increases in power supply expenses, but they're relatively minor at $19 million, which in a $380 or so million of power supply expense is very small. And that's primarily due to portfolio position changes from one year to the next, and some increases in energy cost as we compare 2025 to 2026 energy expenses. Remember, energy expenses are very specific to each period that you transact in. All the other expenses are generally increasing by $4 million, and these are mainly for minor expenses in vendor contracts that are per the board-approved contracts, and some minor increases in contingency costs and legal, such as for legal expenses, and some minor updates. So those are the main highlights of the budget. In the next slide, I'm showing you the numbers. As you can see, this I noticed that in the screen the numbers are appear really small, but you can see the circle here. The big highlight is the $165 million reduction in revenues, and that's the main story. Again, that's because of the anticipated increase in PCIA and in expectation that PG&E rates will be coming down. So if you look at the bottom line, projecting 40 million draw, but again, this number when we come back in December will change. One of the key inputs again will be the market price benchmark that the CPUC issues in October, as well as all the market updates up to that point. And we are still seeing energy prices softening from where when we put this budget together. So as I promised last time, this was going to be a short presentation because I'm just basically recapping what we had discussed. So that brings me to the waterfall slide. And as you know, when that slide comes up, that means so it's the end of my presentation. Again, the biggest risk, PCIA, PG&E generate. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. We will have less uncertainty in updating the budget in December when we know the MPVs. We won't know the final rates until almost end of December when the CPUC issues a decision at the end of close to the last meeting in December, and then PG&E then issues an advice letter following that PUC vote. For all practical purposes, we will know the rates in January, which is around the time we implement them, but we will make the proposal for rate changes in December 2025 meeting. Again, we'll look at the financial levels, financial options, and we'll bring them back to the board. And the other thing that we do at this time of the year when we adopt the budgets is we always look at our reserve policy. And as we discussed, for the reasons we had discussed, we don't recommend any changes to the reserve policy or the reserve target levels. They're based on the stress test analysis. Even if we were to follow the strict policy that we have for the stress test analysis, it really has no practical implications because there's no way we can increase any of the targets. And stress test is one input. There are other inputs we take into account, including the credit rating agencies. So staff feels very comfortable with where the targets are and recommends that we retain the current reserve policy. That concludes my presentation, but as I said, before we take the vote, I'll be happy to take any questions you have. And as I said, this will be a continuing discussion, and there's lots of levers and lots of uncertainty and a lot of risk drivers. And we'll keep working also with the committees, the Finance and Executive Committee, before we come to the board in December. And just a reminder, we did meet the Finance Committee in August 4th, and they have unanimously recommended that the board adopt this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrit. We will start with questions from the board. I do not see any. Do we have any public comment? We'll come back to you. Okay. I do not see any public comment. We'll come back to comments from the board. And I'm gonna start jumping ahead of you, Director Showalter, and just say, look at this world that we live in there where we say $40 million. Well, these things happen, you know, that our earlier discussion about our reserves and the strength of that we've built up, I think that's really important. And let's also not forget the message that our customers are going to see lower rates and they're going to be happy and we're going to grin and bear it. It's going to be a little worse for us financially, but they're going to be happier and we're going to be happier with them. And they'll take it to you, Director.
Those are all very, very good points. And I just wanted to kind of ask staff to remind us a little bit about good news we're giving our customers is that they're getting a rebate, right? And could you just give us a little update on where that is? I know we got an email not too long ago.
Yes, so you probably saw the press releases that went out. We're issuing $33 million in rebates. And that's again for against usage in August, which is the month when most customers experience the highest bill. But because of the delayed billing cycles, the bills will be in September. So depending on the billing cycle and the rates and each customer's billing cycle, these credits are already rolling out and will continue to roll out and may probably go into somewhat in December too. Remember, each customer is on a different billing cycle. So depending on their billing cycle, most of these bill credits will go out this month in September.
Well, thank you. And I just, I think that's really good news about affordability as well.
Director Martinez Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Amrit, for that. I'll admit the 40 million makes me a little crazy, but I am, as I think my colleagues, well prepared with, with the presentations that you've been giving us. I'm really grateful for the stress test. I guess that has been my saving grace with all of this. So thank you for bringing that information and continuing to keep us abreast of it. It's been a huge learning curve and appreciation for all that you all do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Director Walia?
I have a quick remark. Everyone here knows this. But I do know often the question has been posed to one of us, everybody sitting in this room has faced this question. Why does SVCE hold on to so much money? You should give it to the customers. You should not keep it. And we have had interesting conversations is the way I'll leave it. And this is a very sobering moment. We are fortunate to have a great CFO, a great team at SVCE that has stayed ahead, very firm that we need these reserves. And this is the moment that's telling us why we need these extra reserves to go through the numerous unexpected changes, unpredictability, high level of volatility is probably the only way to put it in this market. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second. Oh.
Great, we have a motion and a second, and I believe we can proceed with the voice vote on this item.
Just wanted to call out, that's for resolution 2025-20.
Yes, that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? The motion carries. Thank you. All right, very good. Let's move on to item number 5 here, which is informational, and that is introduction to the integrated decarbonization roadmap. And take it away, Zoe.
Good evening again. I feel like the theme of this evening is about evolution. Kind of started with one of our founding fathers evolving into his next role, talked a lot about the evolution of our board rules, passing of the budget, and in very much ways, this preview of the integrated decarbonization roadmap is also kind of about our evolution in how we think strategically about our mission and build on all that we've done so far into the next phase. This one. Okay. So this is really meant as a preview. It may jog some questions, which some of which I'll have answers to, some of which we will be discovering and researching over the next several months. You may hear us refer to this effort in future months. We wanted to really just kind of describe it to you all, let you know it's ongoing, and talk about the role that we hope you all will play in this. I'm going to go through these 5 items. So first, in 2018, which feels like 3 lifetimes ago, SVCE published the Decarbonization Strategy and Programs Roadmap. It built on board and stakeholder and community input. It established the GHG reduction targets that we continue to use today. Actually, some of the graphics I'm about to show are right from that original map. Also, these bubbles that you see here, mobility, education, outreach, built environment, are still the bubbles that we use, the focus areas of our decarbonization strategy. So it really created the foundation of our work and our core program initiatives. As we move forward with this refresh and next stage of this evolution, I want to say first, our mission and our focus areas remain the same, right? So that these core things have not changed, and also the focus areas of clean electricity, building electrification, transportation electrification still remain the same. Those things are still true. But a lot has changed, as we all know, since 2018. EV adoption has tripled. SVCE staff, we've grown 2.5 times. We now face electricity rates have doubled in that time, right? It creates a new challenge for residents, but also for electrification and meeting our mission. Back in 2018, AI wasn't a thing, at least a thing that we talked about planning and preparing for. And so the world has changed, we have changed, and it's time for a refreshed plan. We have expanded data capacities, program capacities, policy capacities. I think what used to be one team of 3 is now like 3 departments of many people. So we have improved capacity to do this in a new way. So this update will leverage that growth to create a much more refined set of scenario analysis to support planning and the challenges that lie ahead. It aims to reflect changes in technologies, markets, like we were just talking about, new compliance requirements, as well as us as an organization. We also are excited to more fully integrate supply side planning and demand side planning. Monica often talks about SVCE 3.0, and one of the themes there is integration across teams, but also kind of integration across these 2 sides of our business and thinking of ourselves as a holistic business. And then create a set of metrics to track and report progress. So we do a lot of reporting already to the board, but we're excited to kind of take the next step in refining how we do that reporting and really align our programs metrics with our GHG progress and tracking. So this is just a visual of some of what I said. This first document created a high-level strategic framework. You see this nice, smooth line that seems to be even and delicate going down to 2045. Of course, decarbonization is not going to look like that. It's going to be bumpy and up and down, and it's going to have kind of chutes and ladders all along the way. And so this new updated plan will allow us to have a much more refined and nuanced look at how we meet those challenges. These are just sort of some example graphics here, but we can look technology by technology to see the different implementation strategies, as well as community by community, to get a more realistic picture and more effectively achieve those goals. At the end of this process, you will have some things that you can hold on your hand, look at on your screen, and hopefully my goal is that we all have a really kind of shared and clear vision for what we need to do and how we can most effectively operate as an agency to move our forward to meet our mission. But specifically, a set of updated goals and targets, revised program evaluation framework, and a prioritized set of recommendations. Like the last roadmap, but even in a different way, you all will play a key role in developing and approving this framework by providing guidance on the recommendations in the communication efforts in those targets and milestones, and then eventually approving the evaluation framework and the final roadmap. So I look forward to some robust conversations with you all in the next several months. Our goal is to have this in Q3 of next year. It's the final document. But we'll have several study sessions in that interim period. The first one will be in December, and we envision a second one around the March timeframe. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you for that fine report. Do we have any questions? Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. As far as community outreach, and I know many of our cities have sustainability commissions of some name or flavor. Are we doing any outreach? Where would that outreach, and not that specifically we go to present, but at least making them aware that we're doing stakeholder / informed citizens feedback along the way? Where would that fall in the timeline that's listed here?
Yep, absolutely. So we envision starting that feedback in early 2026 with close stakeholder partners, so such as our member agencies and kind of other folks that are within the decarbonization ecosphere, and then later towards the spring doing broader outreach, but we are also still refining that piece.
Okay, and it's more, some of our cities see their staff, their environmental sustainability staff as the front line. And often we have, these sustainability commissioners themselves that are trying to, let's say, push the boundaries and push those goals even more so than staff. And so just trying to make sure that they're educated along the way, or that there's specific places in here to get their feedback. And they're not true stakeholders at the end of the day, but informed citizens and, ready to fight for that cause. So thank you.
Yep.
Director Walia.
Thank you, Zoe. And Mayor Klein, thank you for bringing that up. That jogged a memory. My city has an environmental staff person. We don't have a commission. It's a small city. But at the same time, that person has a lot of other workload. This is not the main thing. This is just one of the smaller things. What I recommend is when you reach out to the different cities, perhaps consider copying the board member, but more importantly, make sure the city managers are aware of this. Because if there's any feedback, as you have seen, I can say this very clearly, as you have seen in the last 2 years, I have worked very directly with you, asking you multiple times, and the city manager, things have changed because of that. It's just because of the staff person's role being focused on something entirely different, not clean energy. I mean, she's good. She attends the meetings remotely, but there's something else that's expected. And if the city manager is aware, then they can bring it down to that level that we want you to focus on this. So that I'm just tagging that to what Mayor Klein just said. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Other comments? Director Martinez-Beltran.
Thank you. Thanks so much for this. I wanted to ask about, as far as the tracking of performance and goals, I wondered, do we have, could SVCE create some type of a program template for that, that's sharing that with the cities, especially the smaller cities, so that we're able to also track and say, hey, this is how much. I was even thinking as you were talking, like, wouldn't it be great if we could have all of our cities commit to something? And it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just, we make a commitment to try and attain something. And then if we were able to work together with some type of evaluation for the track performance, then we could actually, look, and maybe we even have a little contest amongst us to see proportionally what we could reduce. So those are the things that were really going through my mind as you were talking about this. And I'm just wondering if is that on the plane, or am I way off?
Historically, we've steered away from setting goals for agencies or kind of collectively, because each city has different ways that they like to do this. And I will even say that target that we have is really set as a region-wide target. It's not just necessarily SVCE's target. It's meant to say, okay, what we're trying to achieve as a region. But what we have done and what we've talked about, is there a way to expand this, is providing consistent data to our member agencies. So if folks have climate action plans or doing PHG inventories, they have a kind of a consistent set of data. And I think there'll be many resources and information's developed in this way that we could maybe expand those efforts to increase capabilities and consistency across the region.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. I know we've had at least the 2 million invested in our community. And, I've talked on my council about us really looking at our climate action plan that came on, and getting maybe some more investment in there so we can continue to try and advance, what we're all trying to do together here. And so for us, I think that would be something that would be helpful as a way to, be able to track. I remember as we were setting up our climate action plan, that was something that we didn't really have the ability to track what changes we were making, whether it was with buildings or EVs or whatever.
Right. Do we have any other comments? I don't see any. I already asked for, so thank you very much for your presentation. That was for information.
Thank you.
With that, do we have any board member announcements and direction for future agenda items? I do not see any. Did I skip something? No, I didn't. No.
We're on board member announcements and comments.
That's right.
I'm not sure how many of the people here know, but our vice mayor had to resign for health reasons. And I spoke with him on the way over here. He's feeling better, but he's still a ways from 100%. But he did want me to express his thanks for the flowers. So on behalf of Javed, I'm thanking the board and staff.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if there was any way as a future agenda item, to hear, I would really love to hear anything to what I was just talking about, tracking performance. If there's anything that we could bring forward in the future, once you guys talk about it, I would love to see that on a future agenda item. Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, we are now going to ask for public comment on our closed session, which is coming up, which is public employee performance evaluation. Do we have any public comment on the closed session item? I do not see any, and therefore we are now going to not withdraw. We're going to go adjourn to closed session. Okay, let me hit this thing. All right.
George, Director, Chair, I might just wait out here right now. 10 minutes.
you have to bands on your hands.
Yeah.
And Joanne noticed, she's like, I don't know, you see. Mic check.
What? We talk about the process. In our council meetings, the vice chair, or vice mayor always says.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard that. But
Do it if you want. It's all up to you.
I'll do it. Yeah.
You do.
Thank you. We are going to now return from closed session. I don't know if you restart the recording or not, do you? Okay. Oh. We returned from closed session and we have nothing to report. See you next month.